Yes, I'm going to discuss certain Christian topics, such as speaking in tongues. That being said, as long as you're polite in comments, I'm not going to be offended as far as if you disagreeing with me on anything. And of course, it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, or what denomination. Heck, you could be any of the main three branches of Christianity. There's basically Catholicism, Orthodox, and Protestant. Though Protestant's the one with the more divisions. Like, there's probably 100 different things I can think of, and honestly, there's probably more than I even know of. That being said, I think the most important thing when it comes to that stuff is just believing in God, reading the Bible yourself, and prayer. Now, that being said, you're welcome to this conversation. You're welcome to this channel. Not only regardless of what part of any sect of Christianity you are, but even if you're not, even if you're an atheist, Buddhist, Jew, or I would say any other religion, but that should take care of most of those. Though I imagine people would say atheist isn't a religion, but I mean, technically it is. I mean, it's a system of belief. You believe that either there is no God, or that if there is a higher power, that you don't know what it is. Or maybe another definition of that I'm not aware of. That's fine. Like I said, I mean, as long as your religious beliefs don't involve hating me or wanting to hurt people, that's fine. Heck, I'm perfectly okay with other people having other religious beliefs, as long as their religious beliefs don't, involve anything of, hurting other people, hurting me, or wanting to undermine the country I live in, or many of the traditions or cultures I like. So basically, it's as long as they're not doing anything horrible or hurting others or hurting me, I think people should be able to ask whatever questions of anything. After all, I know while many people like the concept of Stoicism, Zeno and all that, as well as look a lot of stuff like, say, Socrates, Plato, and heck, that's another thing I think is pretty interesting. A lot of, the philosophers of many different eras, as well as, I find it very interesting to read mythology. Many of the Greek stories are just very fascinating to read. Then again, I'm somebody who just likes to read. I have like a dozen plus books of Warhammer 40k lore. I'm also the kind of person who, I have a 3.5 edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I just like to read, the monster manual and the Dungeon Master Guide, and though I think the player handbook I have is 5th edition. So, though I don't even remember how many. I think 5th edition came out a decade plus ago. When was 3.5? I think 3.5 is the early, maybe 2000? Maybe in the late 90s? I can't remember. And I can't remember. I don't think I was alive for 1st edition when it came out, but I became introduced into D&D with 3.5. And yes, I understand I kind of don't really stay on topic. Heck, this is a little off-tangent thing. Like in the current playlist I'm doing, I shared some videos of there's a televangelist, Kenneth Copeland. And I think we can all agree he's fucking psychotic. But yeah, main thing I was saying is that, as long as your religious views aren't, kill everyone that disagrees with you, I'm cool with you. Beyond that, I mean, there's certainly many Christians I disagree with on certain things. Heck, even though I myself am a Christian, I believe very strongly in Jesus, I don't want to live in a country governed by religious rules. So, even though I'm a Christian, I wouldn't want, Christianity to be the basis for the laws in my society. nor do I want that to be the ultimate basis of what people decide is what's right and wrong. I think at the end, when it comes to individual morality, people should base that decision off of logic, rationality, kindness, compassion, common sense, and survival. That being said, yes, I think it's very good to read the Bible, regardless of what faith you are. Heck, I would even recommend that it's good for a person who's a Christian to read books of other faiths. Like if you... I know I can't pronounce it, the Bhagavad Gita, though I have not gotten much into that. But just, like I said, with the Greek mythology, I like to read everything I can. Though, of course, I also get distracted very easily. Now, sometimes I'll start to read certain things on the channel, but I tend to not stay with it too much just because, well, there's other things I want to read more. Heck, right now I'm doing a Let's Play that's basically reading a novel with pictures and music. I mean, that's what the title of the video, we'll get around to it. Even though I'm getting worse and worse about not going on tangents. We're like literally just starting into a tangent here. But I guess the first disclaimer being is that I'm wanting everyone's feedback regardless of your religious beliefs. That being said, if you feel comfortable to share what your religious beliefs are, and even, your experiences with it, like, say what country you're from. Because I feel like saying you're someone who's like a Christian in, like, say California, as opposed to, say, a Christian in, like, Russia, I feel like that would probably be a very different experience. That being said, Christianity, technically, I can't say I know all the denominations, and I feel like there would be some disagreements within just Catholicism and Orthodox Church. Granted, that's the main schism there between those two, and that was mainly just because, the large geographical distance as the church spread across a large area of land but didn't have the internet to instantly communicate with each other, sort of thing. Plus, it was also a bit of a, certain key differences on, and again, I am not qualified to really discuss what those differences are. I feel anyone who's probably devout Catholic or Orthodox would probably be more qualified than myself. I would technically be classified as a Protestant. In fact, I would say pretty much anyone who's not a Catholic or Orthodox would be classified as some kind of Protestant. Even if you're just someone who came across the Bible and decided to start reading it on your own. Though I imagine the main reason, the issue with the Protestants, why that came about was just because there was the main complaints, the Protestant, protest was that, we wanted a Bible that everyone could read, as well as a lot of the preachers were very corrupt and were driven by vanity, power, and money. Though you could certainly say that that's true of any organization that gets a large amount of power, not just religion. I would say people being corrupt and lying and perhaps thinking of themselves as superior to others and thinking like everyone else is just a bunch of plebs and feeling that they're justified in being manipulative and being above others. I think it's true of any group that has a power, like especially politicians. We can all agree that it's very likely for many politicians to be very corrupt, yes? And so I'd say that whether it be a politician, a king, or even a preacher of any faith, any religion, or even if it's an organization that has nothing to do with politics and nothing to do with religion, though I'd imagine most things have something to do with one of those in one way or another, or both. But I'd imagine even something has nothing to do with politics or religion. If there's some amount of power to be had, I think it's likely that usually the people that tend to seek that power the most tend to be the most corrupt. Because usually the people that won't be corrupt with power usually don't have an interest in having power. And even when they do get the power, they tend to obey a lot of rules of morality that limit themselves. Because they feel certain lines shouldn't be crossed, which is good, but also it's kind of like Batman with the no-kill rule. Would he be more effective in combat if he just started running around with a shotgun? Probably, but I feel like that would be a very different TV show. And I feel like he would. You can't really. Now, granted, at the same time, honestly, given how fucking strong Bruce Wayne is, just punching people. I mean, people should just start dying, like randomly, just because humans are kind of fragile. Like, yes, there's many people that'd be fine, but I mean, it's less lethal, but I'm pretty sure if I got punched by Mike Tyson, I'm just going to die. Like, I try to copy some of Mike Tyson's workout stuff, and I know I will in no way ever even be 1/1,000,000th of the boxer that Mike Tyson is. But at least by attempting it, I'm at least making myself better than I was before attempting it. Now, would I ever qualify as a boxer? No, I'm terrible at it. I'm doing a terrible job at being athletic or having skill in any way. So, no, I'd be terrible at it in every way. But at least I'm less terrible than I was before. But yeah, it's like I imagine if I got punched by Mike Tyson, I would just die. Okay, I feel like I need an AI companion to like help me, I don't know, stay focused. Like just a gentle reminder every time I start to go off topic. Or the AI would just be like really fucking confused. Like I imagine like if I was having a conversation with, I don't know, anyone. Then again, usually if I have conversations with people in real life, I tend to do a lot more listening. I tend to let them speak, and I tend to let them gear the conversation. Heck, I'll keep the conversation geared away from myself, away from speaking about myself. Heck, people in real life tend to think I'm like a robot or some shit because I don't really express emotions very well when it comes to, though I do have, actually I feel like I have very strong emotions, if not stronger than most people, and that's not an issue of me trying to brag so much as me trying to say mental health issue. I don't know, I'm pretty sure I have autism, ADHD, borderline personality disorder, severe depression, PTSD, etc., etc. That being said, we've spent, according to OBS, 13.5 minutes so far. And I have not even talked about the main thing that we started this conversation on, because I can't stay focused. And I get distracted easily. And I definitely have something called disorganized speech. It's apparent in not only what you're hearing me speak right now, but even if I'm writing, even if I'm typing something. But I would say in general, when it comes to talking to people in real life, I tend to use the other people as a sounding board. That way I just sort of keep myself focused on what they're talking about. But in a situation like this where it's just me talking, I just tend to go wherever. Heck, and I'll say this. This is something I've been doing my entire life. For as long as I can remember. I'm 38 years old, and I have been doing this for eternity. For as long as I can remember, I talked in this way. Though a lot of times it would be me, playing with my toys, talking to my toys, like as kids would. But even as an adult, if I wasn't recording this, I would just be, pacing my living room, talking to myself, walking on the bike trail. Like usually on the bike trail, I'm either walking quietly, just listening to the sound of the wind and watching the trees and just enjoying, the outdoors. I mean, on the one hand, I'm tempted to go walking right now, but it's also really, really cold out there. It's December 4th of 2025. It's 10 o'clock a.m. right now, 10:01 a.m. America time. But yeah, it's really cold out there, and I don't really want to go outside. I mean, I want to go for a walk, but also it's really cold. But it's just... Sometimes I'll be just lost in thought. Sometimes I'll be thinking it just in my head, and other times I'll be talking out loud with myself. But it's... I don't know. I would say isolation's probably exacerbated that issue, but it's definitely not the sole cause. So there's definitely other reasons why I just sort of talk like this, which I guess I don't really know how I would describe this other than just bothering all of you. I don't know. I mean, we can't even stay on the topic of what we're trying to start with. The main point I was trying to start with in the little beginning of that was I would like to know what you guys think about speaking in tongues. Now, that being said, long ago, I actually spoke in tongues. I think I was about 13 years old. It was in a apostolic church. I describe the apostolic church... No, granted, you could just type in apostolic, A-P-O-L-S-T-I-C. I definitely misspelled that. Just type it in Google. Heck, just use your microphone yourself and just go, be like, hey, Google, apostolic church, and then you could look that up. I would describe it as like a DBZ fusion of Baptist and Catholic, though I imagine all three of those groups would be extremely offended at even being compared to each other. But, I mean, heck, I am a 38-year-old white bisexual man, and my dad is a 76-year-old black deacon of an all-black church. I grew up in an all-black church. Half the time, I was the only white person in the building. The other half of the time, I was one of two white people in the building, the other person being my mother. I love my mom very, very, very much. She is very precious to me. She's been there for me on a lot of things, and, well, I can also say I love Christmas. And I love Christmas lights and Christmas songs and Christmas trees and all the stuff with Christmas, both the religious and the non-religious stuff. I enjoy video games. I enjoyed playing Mario 1, Mario 3, and Spyro 1 with my mom. Heck, my mom would cook a lot of food homemade, and I would sit in the kitchen and just talk with her, and I enjoyed that. That being said, my dad, technically my stepfather, though I consider him my dad, I consider him my father. He's been there since I was young. Definitely a better person in every regard than my biological father was. Then again, that's not a high bar to set. That being said, my stepdad is kind of... I've got some disagreements on certain things. I mean, heck, the past couple years has been going on and on about how Christmas is evil, Christmas is of the devil, talking about all the pagan roots of it and all that, and how it's just evil, and Christmas is horrible and evil and of the devil, and I'm like, that, I'll be honest, it makes me angry. It makes me angry. And of course, I've had disagreements with the pastor of the church I went to back when I was much younger. Particularly from times I was like 17 years old and onward. That being said, the church I went to there was a lot of speaking in tongues, and it was usually like a 3-hour long service. Most of it being the pastor talking about, well, like the end of the world and everyone being garbage and stuff like that, it seemed. And just, there's a lot of speaking in tongues. And he like called for offerings like a dozen times every service. That being said, when I was like 13 years old, he did some praying over me. And from it, like, because it's the sort of thing you do with everybody. And I did start speaking in tongues. I did actually start speaking in tongues. Now, I'm also a very analytical person. I like to ask a lot of questions. And by like, I mean I can't fucking help it. And not only that, pastor, and my dad, and every religious person I've ever met in my life tend to get annoyed because I like to ask questions about everything. Heck, I find the philosopher Rene Descartes very interesting. When I was talking about Stoicism earlier, I feel Rene Descartes, the French philosopher, is a more apt philosophy to follow than Stoicism, though I think a bit of everything is important. Like, I think it's important to, like, heck, I've read some of the book Tao Te Ching on this channel. Use some pictures of the old Final Fantasy games for backdrops. But I have spoken in tongues. And even as I was doing it, I was trying to understand what I was saying, and I couldn't. But I'll tell you this, I couldn't actually control my body. It was a very weird feeling, and I couldn't, like, I was trying to understand it, what I was doing as I was doing it. I was trying to understand what I was saying. And even as I was trying to do it, I tried to actually physically stop myself from doing it, and I could not do that. I did not have any physical control over my body, as well as it was a very unusual feeling. So, but basically I was saying a bunch of things that, to a large degree, I would say sounds like gibberish because I have no ability to understand anything I was saying. But I also had no ability to not say those things either. My body was acting on its own, and I could not physically control my own body anymore. And it's definitely definitely a bit of an odd feeling. Like, I don't do drugs, so I don't really know if I can compare it to anything. Like, the only drugs I've ever taken were always prescribed by doctors. I mean, aside from that, sometimes I'll get stuff from like a supplement store, but that's like, oh, here's some lemon balm or stuff like that, or here's some, like the CBD stuff supposed to help aches and pains, or, the shilajit sort of mushroom stuff. Like, I've tried that stuff, but that's like, that's not drugs, that's vitamins. And that's me just trying to, like, okay, maybe I can be more athletic with that. And, like, but say, what can I say? I'm fucking fat and I'm not athletic. And it's like, you're like, oh, maybe this stuff will help me build muscle or be less depressed or something, or get better sleep. I don't know. But main point I'm just trying to say is this, like, heck, I've never smoked anything in my life. Like cigarettes, vapes, nothing. But I guess the main thing I'm trying to say is I really don't know what to compare it to. Like, when I was speaking in tongues, all I know is like my body felt very dizzy. It felt very warm. Like, it just, I don't know the good way to describe it. Especially since I'm trying to describe something that took place like, 25 years ago? All I can say is I was standing, and then I guess you could describe it like a sort of standing sort of seizure thing. And like, I was speaking, and my mouth was saying things I didn't understand, but I couldn't actually physically, because I even tried to physically stop myself from speaking in tongues once I started, and I couldn't actually do it. It just kept going. So, yeah. Now, obviously there's also the discussion about speaking in tongues, about whether or not it's supposed to be someone speaking in actual foreign languages, or if it's more like a gibberish gobbledygook speak, as people would say it. And of course, there's different people who are different camps of this. Some people think people shouldn't be having any of those, Holy Ghost sort of gifts nowadays, and others think it should be very strong and prevalent. Heck, the weirdest thing I always think about is this. The idea that, people treated having dreams like they were such a huge thing in the past. And when you hear the descriptions of people's dreams in the Bible, they sound so simplistic. And yet, on any given day, I have like a dozen dreams that are the most chaotic bullshit you can imagine. And it's like, it makes me wonder, like, how did most people in the past not have dreams? Was dreaming a rare thing in the past? Like, I don't really understand that. Because I know I have lots and lots of dreams, and it's very chaotic, and I know many people out there, dreaming is kind of a normal thing. So I don't know if, there was a major change. And this isn't even just an issue of religion. Like, even if you have no belief in a higher power at all, at that point, we're not even discussing religion. We're talking about evolutionary biology. The idea is this. Even if you ignore any kind of concept of anything supernatural, if you simply look at human beings as a biological organism, nothing supernatural at all, and you look at, okay, you have a group, like an organism, that displays something that they weren't doing in the past. Like, now granted, there's a lot more people nowadays than there was in the past too. But the main point is this. If you look at humans in the past, and you're under the impression that they weren't dreaming very much, and then all of a sudden, everyone's having just insane amounts of dreams, well, even if you ignore any kind of supernatural thing, even if you say there's no such thing as supernatural anything, and everything's just pure biology, well then, even if you ignore everything supernatural and you go to pure biology, then the question is this. What has happened with the human race that, what biological change has occurred in a human brain that has caused humans to dream so much more? And at what point did it really start? Not even discussing back biblical times. What if we went back 300 years? How much did the average person dream? And what did they dream about? One thing I find very interesting is the invention of television. Now, of course, we've had different types of TV sets. We have the old CTR cathode ray televisions, as well as LCD, plasma screens, heck, black and white to color. And of course, nowadays we have computers and phones. Heck, I remember being younger, cell phones didn't even exist. And nowadays, everyone's walking around with a fucking supercomputer in their pocket that can go on the internet. I remember when I first got a phone, it didn't even have texting. Texting didn't even exist yet. And heck, I don't think I got my first cell phone until after I was graduated from high school, because cell phones didn't exist yet at that point. Then again, there were payphones everywhere. Nowadays, I'm pretty sure if most people wouldn't even remember what a payphone is, or the idea of static snow in the old analog TVs. So obviously, okay, we're going off a bit of a tangent here, off of I don't know how many other tangents, but the idea is this. Do electronic screens affect brain chemistry, and do they affect dreams? Now, obviously, we have like 20 different types of screens that exist nowadays that have different types of lighting, and heck, we'll probably invent something new too at some point. Heck, we'll probably have like fucking holograms eventually. That'll be three-dimensional light. I'm going to watch hentai in that way at some point. If we have actual three-dimensional holograms. Yeah, I'm going to watch hentai in 3D hologram. Okay, I need to stay focused. Okay. Main point being, what percentage of the human race before the first television was ever invented, which I can't remember what year that was? Do I have Google available right now? And by that, do I mean I already have it open? No, I don't. I have to actually... Let's minimize this. Type in Google. Of course, initially it brings up Bing, so then I'll go from Bing to Google. When was the first TV invented? The electronic television was first successfully demonstrated in San Francisco on September 7th of 1927. It was designed by Philo Taylor Farnsworth, a 21-year-old inventor who had lived in a house without electricity until he was 14. So 1927. It hasn't even been 100 years yet. When did TVs first introduced? In the late 1920s. Okay, when did they become... Okay, that doesn't... When was TV made available to the public? 1939. During the... And of course, we're just reading random shit off Google, so of course, take everything with a grain of salt, because you don't know if you can trust everything off the internet. During the late 30s, U.S. had 18 experimental stations running during the 1939 World Fair. David Sarnoff, president of RCA, unveiled the first commercial publicly available accessible television broadcast. Main point is this. The TV, and of course, heck, I don't think we got color TV until the 60s. Let's type that in. Can't focus on anything. 1953. The first color television was invented in 1953, though I imagine most people still at that point didn't even have access to a television. I think there was a study at one point in the past that introduced people to black and white TVs who had never watched televisions before. And I think it mentioned that not only were the people suddenly having dreams, but their dreams were in black and white. But once they looked at a color television, it changed it and it just overrode it. So even if you went back to looking at a black and white TV. And I guess that's the main point is this. Looking at certain colors or combinations could influence what your dream is. And I don't remember what this study's from or if it actually exists or not. Maybe I'm just remembering something. I don't know. All I can say is this. The question is this. Does looking at a computer screen affect brain chemistry? Does it matter what kind of computer screen? Heck, I know a lot of people say the computer screens have blue light. But what if you could change it to be red light? And of course, is there a difference between LCD? If a TV does affect your brain chemistry in some way, well, Does it matter if it's a cathode ray television, the older types, or if it's an LCD or a plasma or something like that? Does that matter? Does it affect it in different ways? And if it does affect brain chemistry, does it affect dreams? Do televisions make humans dream more? And does it make dreams more vivid? And if so, why? One, if we're comparing people from thousands of years ago with nowadays, has there been a biological change to the human brain that would change the way we dream? Or even the way you imagine things in your mind? Like, apparently there's people that, like, I have a non-stop inner monologue in my head at all times. Sometimes there's multiple going on at once, and it's kind of confusing. But apparently some people don't do that, and honestly, I can't even imagine the idea of not having an inner monologue. It just feels like a thing that should be impossible. But I imagine it's probably the same for people that don't have an inner monologue, imagining the idea of having one. Same way there are apparently people that can't imagine things in their head. Like, I can imagine clearly an apple. I can think of it, and I can imagine everything about it. The color, the texture, the taste, the smell. I can even just imagine in my hand and imagine what it feel like to be like moving the apple around in my hand. So, I don't know. But then again, apparently there's people that, there's different things. Like, some people can't tell depth. Some people can't see color. Some people have worse night vision. Obviously, most humans don't have any kind of night vision at all, but at least you have the ability to adapt to certain light changes. Now, of course, we'll never be as good as most animals, but some people can be better at it, and some people are worse. Heck, there are certain species, I think, like, what is it, a mantis fish? Or mantis shrimp? Or something? I'm not sure. There are certain animals that can see more spectrums of colors than humans. Heck, there's also the idea of whether or not you could see things like infrared or ultraviolet light. Or, pheromones or sounds. Heck, imagine if you could see radio waves. Again, I'm getting really off topic. The topic was speaking in tongues, and of course this was meant to be, hey guys, we're going to spend 1 minute talking about the idea of speaking in tongues, and then we're going to get to reading the story. And we are like 40 minutes, 38 minutes into this. So, yeah. My bad, I can't focus or anything. Heck, I'll say this. I have disagreements with the church that I went to when I was younger. Like, one, I feel hell is unjustifiable. I'm bisexual. I strongly support Donald Trump. I love Christmas. And I very strongly love America. Now, that being said, I certainly believe that speaking in tongues is a thing to do with God, and that there can be multiple forms of it, whether it be the speaking something that no one around you understands it, or the type where it can be you're saying something and it's an actual language you're not familiar with. But I can also say that I largely don't understand it, as even the circumstance where I experienced it myself. Now, I'll say this, that is the church I went to a lot, usually like 3-hour-long services, and I'll tell you this. I don't really like the church I went to when I was younger, and I don't agree with them on a lot of things. And I feel largely a lot of them really aren't good people. Now, I was baptized in that church. I prayed a lot in that church, read the Bible a lot in that church, spoke in tongues in that church. And I'll say this, speaking in tongues, sign of the Holy Ghost, however you put it. But I'll say this. The Holy Ghost is a blessing I have, but it's not due to any goodness on my part. It's not due to any goodness of the pastor's part, and it's not due to any goodness of the church or the building or the organization. Honestly, whatever blessings God wants to give anyone, that is God's choice. So at the end of the day, me speaking in tongues or anything, whether it's me having the Holy Ghost or anything to do with me when it comes to that stuff, is not due to any goodness on my part, nor is it any goodness on the pastor's part or any goodness on the church's part. It's purely the goodness of God, of the Lord. Now, that being said, it's not like it granted me fucking superpowers or nothing. And I can't say I really know of any difference it had on me at all in the long term or short term, aside from just how I felt in the moment. Now, I'll say this. I don't wish anything against, any of the churches I've been around, but, many of the pastors I've disagreed with. I don't agree with them on certain things they believe or how they say. And, of course, you've met a lot of pastors that are just not good people. Now, do I think they're faking speaking in tongues? No. But I don't think they're really good people, or even I don't think I can really even trust them in terms of having a connection to God. And I'll say this, I think it's good to read the Bible. I think it's good to pray. But I don't think that these are things that are guarantees that you have a connection to God or any sort of connection to truth or divinity. Heck, I know that there's many televangelists out there who will speak in tongues that I am 99.99% certain that they are just completely faking it or even being possessed by a demon. And Kenneth Copeland, I'm absolutely certain that he's faking it, and if it's not faking, it's actually some sort of evil spirit speaking through him. And I feel like a lot of these people are just people that want a sense of power over people, that they want control. They want to be able to tell people to do things. Heck, you're basically yelling at people saying, hey, give me money or you're going to burn in hell. Do what I say or you'll die. And then you'll die worse for eternity. I mean, sounds kind of, coercive. It sounds, how does it sound good at all to have the idea that you're yelling at people and threatening them with, physical and existential harm, both, if you don't give them money? And you would be surprised how many pastors and preachers and priests I've met who actually cheat on their wives, or, even the ones who aren't allowed to have wives, the Catholic groups. The amount of them that just very debauchery behavior, wow. But the main point is this. There's a lot of people, I think, that go to church that are just doing it because they feel they have to, that they'd feel they'd be shamed by others people, that they care what other people think, or they're just scared of hell. And I can't blame them for being scared of hell. That sounds like a certainly scary thing. Nobody wants to either go to oblivion or be tortured for eternity, but at the same time, that doesn't sound like, a very benevolent thing. And of course, and there's the thing is this: if war existed in heaven at one point, why wouldn't it exist again? At that point, why would you expect things to be peaceful? And of course, if things are completely peaceful, at that point, are you still having your sense of self? I still want to have a type of human body with all of the parts. I don't want to look like a fucking biblically accurate angel. I don't think that would be very fun. I don't think that would be enjoyable. I feel like that would be terrifying. I feel like the only thing more terrifying than witnessing a biblically accurate angel would be being a biblically accurate angel. Like, it's one thing, like, you've seen those YouTube videos, like, the AI, which, again, that's, oh my goodness. You've seen, guys seen the Sora 2 videos. Like, you guys can basically make AI videos of anything now. It's insane. But it's just, like, it's one thing to, like, you see the pictures of the biblically accurate angel, but then it's like, imagine if you actually were the biblical, like, your body were changed into that. I imagine that would be a very emotionally, psychologically painful situation. Like I feel like that would be torture on a mental level. I feel like that would be not good for your mental health. And that's another thing. Like, I feel like a lot of these people that talk about all these rules and certain things that go on and concerns about things, but here's the thing. If you expect that to be such a thing in life, then why would you expect to not be treated in such a way in heaven? I mean, at that point, I feel like it would be almost like George Orwell's 1984 at that point, in terms of just, it just seems very overly controlling. It seems, I don't know, sadistically violent. And again, you look at a lot of the pastors, like, you look at the people's behaviors, it just, you seem like a lot of people that are just violent, impulsive people who are, like, obsessed with themselves. Like, you have a lot of pastors that, like, who want to become televangelists, who just care, like, I feel like they're just driven by greed and vanity. And it's just, I'll say this. I think it's good. Like, I believe in God. But I also, while I think it's good to read the Bible and I think it's good to pray, I also think that that's not a guarantee of being a good person or of understanding things. You could read the Bible for hours and hours every day. That won't necessarily make you a good person or make a connection with God. I mean, heck, I could certainly say that, like, this Kenneth Copeland person, I'm quite certain he probably reads the Bible quite a bit himself. But I would also say he's clearly not a good person. And obviously people could say, oh, who are you to be qualified to say that? And I'm like, I'm just using common sense. Not trying to use any sort of divine authority to say who's right or wrong. I'm just saying, as a random guy, just, using my life experience and looking and listening to this other person, I feel like he's psychotic and he's just a very greedy, hateful person who wants to be in a position of power and control over people. And basically, he's very vain. I mean, I would say I feel like the word narcissist is overused in society, but I feel like it would apply to him. And again, like I said, regardless of what religion you are, you feel free to pipe in any part of this. Then again, I mean, even if you had an interest in, interacting with this discussion, air quotes, I'm not sure anyone's going to have the interest to actually listen to me this long. I mean, it was supposed to be just a short, then again, I tend to get long-winded on this stuff, but it was supposed to be like, hey guys, what are your thoughts on speaking in tongues? Have you ever experienced it yourself? And, what are your own personal religious experiences? But the main point being is that I certainly hold that there is actual speaking in tongues that people do that's real, but I also hold that there's probably a lot of people that are just faking it, and other people that maybe it's, not very nice spirits speaking through those people. I don't know. Maybe it's a psychosomatic response in some people's situations. Now, I'm not going to say that's all of them. I would certainly say there's probably some people that are legitimately speaking in tongues, and it's legitimately the Holy Ghost. But I also feel like there's many situations in which, one, it could be a different supernatural thing occurring, or it could be like a psychological thing occurring to where the person's, like, maybe it's either the person's, like, some people are outright lying and pretending to do it, but other people could be like, I don't know, some sort of induced psychosis type thing, that maybe something's happening that triggers something inside the human brain that involves language centers or something. But I feel like it's probably a mix of all those things. Like, I feel there's probably certain situations where it's literally something occurring in the brain, and other situations where it is something supernatural and sometimes is of the Holy Ghost. Now, again, I'd say, when is it which thing? And the answer is, I would say just listen to it and make the decision for yourself. Though I feel like it'd be a very biased situation in regards that I feel like most times if there is speaking in tongues actually in the Holy Ghost, I imagine it's not going to be recorded. Whereas I feel most of the time if there's people that are faking it for attention, or if there's something that isn't of God, I feel it's more likely to be recorded and used for that. It's kind of like those whole things with like those streamers that do stuff where they involve with people like, oh, I'm going to hand things out to homeless people. I imagine most of the people that are actually good people and actually care about helping the homeless people, they're not going to be recording themselves doing it. Like, I feel like if they're actually doing something, you know, with the interest of helping people, and they're not doing it for selfish reasons, I feel like most of those people that are going to be doing something with, you know, pure, sincere heart, I feel like they're not going to be recording it. I feel like they're just going to go out and help the homeless people, and they're not going to record themselves doing it and post it. Like, I feel like if anyone's recording themselves doing it, it adds a little bit of a question of the motivations of why you're doing this. Like, why are you recording this? Why are you... Now the question is, why am I recording what I'm doing right now? And the answer is because I'm just some random crazy guy talking to himself. So, yeah, I'm basically having a discussion with people. Though, I don't know how this functions, because I feel like anyone trying to have this conversation with me is just going to be, I don't know, really annoyed at trying to follow me talking about everything in no organized manner whatsoever. But, I don't know. I guess the main thing I was trying to say is, I think it's good for people to believe in God and to believe in Jesus. And I think it's good for you to, obviously, if you can find a church that you like, air quotes, basically one that you feel you can trust, that's good. But honestly, I would say my opinion is that the most important thing when it comes to God or anything is to just try to understand it. You know, it'd be like saying you care about like biochemistry. Well, one could say, oh, you have to request you have to go to this special class in Harvard or some shit. Or just be interested in it. You're interested in it, so just seek it out and just try to understand it. You know, find books on it and just start reading. Listen to what other people have to say about it. The main point is that it's not just like, oh, just follow this cookie cutter thing and you have to get this course or some shit or get this certificate. It's more so, you want to be good at math? Do math. Pure and simple. You want to be athletic? Go to the gym. You want to understand God and the Bible? Well, try your best to do that. You know, just sit down, read the Bible, read what other people have to say about it, and just pray on it. And by prayer, I mean, there's different ways people can interpret prayer too. Some people look at it as just like a meditation thing. Some people look at it as actually talking to God in terms of your voicing your thoughts on things. And other times you can look at it like you're actually like doing a scientific inquiry, to where on the one hand you can look at prayer as, humility and, offering praise to God. On the other hand, you could say it as, you're actually just trying to speak to God about what's on your mind. And the other way you look at a scientific inquiry, like you're a scientist, and you're looking at it like it's a math problem. And so basically you'll read something in the Bible and you'll try to understand it, and you even ask questions about like the context of the scenario of what was going on. Like say if you have the book of Daniel, well, it probably wouldn't hurt to try to learn some background knowledge of Babylon itself. It'd be like the idea of like you want to learn about the French Revolution. Well, try to learn more about just what was normal for people in France at that time. Like, it'd be one thing, like say you want to learn about the French Revolution. One, you could get a book on the French Revolution, but also you can get a book on just France in that time period that's not even about the revolution, and just understand the people a little bit better. It'd be like saying, I don't know, saying you want to understand, say, a genre of music. Well, what if you could look into, like, what about the venues where it get played at, and the different bands and where they came from, what their inspirations were? I don't know. This is probably terrible advice, but I guess the main thing I'm just trying to say is that if you're interested in anything, well, then just do it. Like, if you want to play guitar, just play the guitar. Listen to music. Find bits of sheet music and just start playing it. Maybe play other instruments. Listen to other people. Watch other people play it. So, main thing when it comes to the Bible is just, if you want to understand the Bible, just sit down and read the Bible. Now, there's no guarantee you'll understand it correctly. And in fact, even if you think you do, there's probably going to be lots of people that would disagree with you. And that's what discussions are for. But the main point I would say is this. Sitting down and reading the Bible, or even attending church every Sunday, or giving, like 15% of your gross income as well as offerings every month, doesn't guarantee that you are closer to God or make you a good person. There's plenty of people that are absolutely awful people that go to church every Sunday and read the Bible every day. And heck, Jesus really admonished the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes in the Bible. Particularly, they cared more about the letter of the law. They cared about fulfilling every detail of the law, but not caring about the intention of the law. As well as the people who are more concerned with their own self-righteousness and, how they looked in front of other people, and just following the rules to be exact, but not caring about, thinking more on it. The idea of even putting critical thinking into rather than just blindly obeying everything put in front of you, actually try to think about each thing that's put in front of you and just try to question it. I agree with the concept that no rule, no question should be off limits, whether it be about science, religion, politics. You should be able to ask any question as long as you're being polite. If you're I think the idea of any sort of blasphemy law of any religion is dumb, because I think people should be able to have questions. People should be able to disagree. People should be able to have differing opinions. any sort of like laws against things like sacrilege or blasphemy or heresy, I think is wrong. I think people should be able to disagree. And I would certainly say I don't think anyone should be forced to believe in any belief against their will. And I don't think anyone should be threatened with harm in this world or the next if they were based on what God they do or don't believe in. And of course, you have different things. I mean, heck, you have people that say, you know, Christmas is of the devil. And I'm like, I love Christmas. Now, I mean, it's not like I'm, you know, sacrificing goats to Santa Claus, but still, you know, I like Christmas carols. I like Christmas musics. Heck, you guys like Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and all that stuff. And I like Christmas decorations. I like Christmas trees. Heck, I'll say this. I know a lot of preachers and pastors, including, you know, my dad, who's a deacon, who have never played a video game once in their life. Ever. And it's just, I don't know. I guess I'm voicing a little bit my own anger and dissatisfaction with certain things when it comes to that. And I certainly, the more I look at it, I feel like the church I grew up in when I was younger, and the pastor of that church, certain things they said and certain actions they took, I felt were wrong. And I feel like they don't have a connection to God. And I feel like they don't have any connection to truth. Now, I don't wish any harm on them. I hope eventually when they do die that they go to heaven. You know, I don't wish any harm on them at all, and I don't want to be disrespectful of them. But at the same time, I don't agree with them. And I disapprove, and I think poorly of them for certain actions that they've taken that I consider immoral. But I can also say with absolute certainty that they have read the Bible an absurd amount. But they're clearly not any better for it. And that's just the strangest thing. But I'll say this. I think it's good to read the Bible. But reading the Bible doesn't make you a good person. And it doesn't, you know, automatically grant you a closeness to God. And I would say whether you believe in God or not, whether you're Christian, Jewish, atheist, Hindu, I think it's important. The most important thing you can do is just try your hardest to understand it. Like, even if you're an atheist, I think it would still be good to read the Bible and to at least just try to understand it and understand what you think about things. You know, basically read a thing in the Bible and decide what you think on it. And of course, I can certainly understand there's certain things that occur in the Bible that I don't like, that I find to be very, very violent and macabre. And I could certainly agree that many people would look at certain things that happen in the Bible as being psychotic, like just outright psychopathy. Like certain things that are done that are espoused as good things, you're like, you look at it objectively and like, that sounds horrifying. But I guess the main thing I'm just trying to say with that is, as I've spent over an hour on this tangent that was supposed to be 2 minutes, basically the point is, if you guys feel comfortable sharing, what religion are you? And like, say if you're Christian, what, like, do you consider yourself Catholic, Orthodox, some denomination of Protestant? Heck, like I said, I mean, I grew up in a apostolic church, and several of my friends, like I had some people that were Presbyterian, some that were like Lutheran, some that were Catholic. But as far as I was concerned, I was just, okay, well, I'll just believe in God. But of course, there's many groups out there that are very different in their views. Like there's Calvinists, there's the Mormons. And so that's definitely a big difference and very big disagreements there. But I would say, regardless of your faith, I think it would be good to read the Bible. And just for the sake of just reading it. Now, obviously, I think it's good to believe in God, and I think it's good to seek after God, but I think the best way when it comes to seeking after God is just try to be a good person. Read the Bible, try to understand it, try to think about God, and try to understand. Obviously, it's never something you'll really succeed at because, humans, but I'd say the attempt is really what we're meant to do. To try to understand. But, yeah, feel free to share your views on that. Particularly on, like I said, the whole speaking in tongues thing. What are your thoughts on speaking in tongues? Have you ever spoken in tongues yourself? Have you seen other people? Now, like I said, definitely people like the Kenneth Copeland person. He's either faking it or he's actually being possessed by a demon. Because, I feel like most people would agree with me. Like, a lot of those televangelists are not good people. And they're just living lives of luxury as they're just con men. And I feel like they're psychotic, they're violent, they're impulsive, they have no self-control, they're narcissistic. And I feel like they're driven by vanity and greed. And I feel like they are very hateful people. And I feel like they would be very, insufferable isn't even the word. It's a degree of the person's so insufferable that they're actually psychologically unbalanced to the point that you have every reason to feel scared and like you're in danger being around them. I imagine if I was around a Kenneth Copeland in person, I think I would actually be scared of him. I feel like I would feel unsafe. So I don't know what everyone else's views on that are. But it's just, I do feel like a lot of televangelists are just in it for the money, or they just love the idea of being in front of groups of people and having these people just hanging on their every word, and they're able to manipulate and control people like it's a fucking power trip. I imagine there's people that are in charge of cults and cult leaders. Okay, what motivates the cult leader to be in charge of a cult? And especially almost it's a sense of self-aggrandizement. Almost like they have a God complex or a Messiah complex, to where they view to where the people in the church, they're not praying to God, they're praying to the pastor. They're I feel like their allegiance is to the pastor, almost like the preacher, the priest is the idol they're worshiping. But yeah. In general, though, I guess the main thing is this. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. But I also don't think other people have to believe in that if they don't want to. And I don't think anyone should go to hell if they don't believe in God. Nor do I think they should be punished in any way. But I would recommend that everyone should believe in God and should read the Bible. But again, that's your choice. Like I said, as long as your religious beliefs aren't, about, killing me or destroying my country or removing like my ability to have free speech or trying to impose your religious laws on me, yeah, I don't really care. I mean, heck, I'm okay having conversations with people about different topics as long as, they're in, open-minded and they're not just doing it to be assholes and they're actually being polite and, you're having like a good faith argument where it's like you're having a discussion with someone where you're not like yelling and screaming at each other or having name calling, and you're legitimately trying to understand the other person, to where it's not you're not trying to humiliate the other person. You're not trying to like shout down the other person. You're not trying to convert the other person even. It's more like you are just trying to have an honest discussion with someone with the pure intention of you want to understand them and you want them to understand you. You don't want there to be any ill will. You don't want there to be any malice or any contention or any confrontation or any conflict. You just want to be like, hey, this is what I think, and I want you to understand my perspective on things, and I want to try my best to understand your perspective and to do so in a way to where no one is disrespecting or being rude to each other, let alone threatening another person. And of course, most conversations would have to happen over multiple times because most people are not professional orators. And a lot of times they may not think of it. Like, heck, you guys ever have a conversation with somebody and you think later, oh, right, I could have talked about this or brought this up. I mean, human memory is fallible. So obviously, if there's something you didn't remember at the time, you can write it down and then bring it up next time. So you have like little notes and stuff. Though honestly, I don't know how that would help with someone like me where I just can't stay on one subject. Anyway, maybe we should actually try to read the story. I don't know. I'm not even going to put this as an Umaneko thing. Like I was going to be like, I'm going to read Umaneko, but I was like, it was going to be, let's play Umaneko part such and such. But yeah, I mean, that was going to be when I was going to like talk for like 2 minutes on this, and then I was going to hop into the actual game. I'm probably going to get some Mexican food though. But I guess the main thing I was just trying to say is this. What are your thoughts on speaking in tongues, especially, say the Southern Baptist, Apostolic churches, to where you have the people, though, when I tried to find some clips to show you guys, most of the stuff, I don't know, I feel like didn't accurately represent what I saw in churches. And I would say like most of those churches that I was physically in myself, maybe out of the entire congregation, there was usually maybe one or two that would actually speak in tongues during the course of the service. But I will tell you this, aside from constantly calling for offerings, the main body of the service was the pastor having like a 3-hour-long conversation or lecture toward the people. And he was certainly very energetic. And there would be many times that the pastor in every service I ever went to would just start speaking in tongues in the middle of having, and then they might have like 5-10 minutes straight of just, and then of course throughout the rest of his long sermon, you'd have many times where he would just go into it for a few sentences here and there of just speaking in tongues. I don't think he was faking, but at the same time, and of course, like I said, I spoke in tongues in that church too. Though only the one time when he was praying over me. which, again, I'm still grateful for that. I mean, I consider the Holy Ghost, but at the same time, it's like, the more I can think about the way he is as a person, I don't approve of him, and I don't really think he has a connection to God, and I don't think he's a good person. And I really don't feel like him or even my dad, despite being a deacon, I don't really feel like I have any faith in their, validity in God or in speaking on anything. Then again, like with my dad, like it's like he's going on about how Christmas is evil and pagan, and heck, he's literally said Trump is the little Antichrist at one point. And it's just, I don't want to disrespect him, and I want to be on good terms with him. But it's just, I just very strongly disagree. Heck, the whole thing with him going on at Christmas is like, it's like with everything happening in the world, why are you making that a priority? Why would that be a priority? Like, there's so much more going on in the world. Why are you deciding that hating Christmas is the hill you want to die on? And just that and other things, it's just, it makes me angry. Like having an issue of Christmas, having an issue of gay people. It's like, I don't like that, and that bothers me. It bothers me that he has those views about things, and that he is that way. And again, that's his choice, but it also makes it feel like him and just the way his personality is, like it's a struggle. Like, in general, like it just, there's a lot of, like I feel uncomfortable and a bit paranoid when it comes to him on things. So it's just, I don't know. And again, I mean, I don't hate him. I wish the best on stuff. But at the same time, it's like, I have lots of things, heck, not just in terms of, church, but like in regards to my personal life, growing up and the house I did when I grew up when I was younger, as well as just things that he has said and ways he has behaved that both before he became a deacon and even after he became a deacon, like he has said and done things that I considered extremely offensive, that I feel angry about. Like I feel very angry toward him about. And I feel very disrespected. And I also feel very, to a degree, even scared of him in regards to certain behaviors he's exhibited and certain things that he has said that I just feel very uncomfortable about, and I feel very angry about, and I feel very unsafe about. So that's more so just a lot of conflicting emotions on my part, and hopefully that doesn't become a major bad thing at some point in the future. Like, I certainly worry if there are certain discussions I have with him in the future, which will probably be inevitable, I worry that those might turn violent. Maybe I'm being paranoid, or maybe I just know him better than, Just saying, there's a lot of things that just, when it comes to that stuff, I do feel angry. And I feel very unhappy about. Like just even things that had nothing to do with God, nothing to do with the Bible, Just things that he has said and done that I felt were really fucked up of him to do and really fucked up of him to say, that I felt were very wrong of him to say. And that makes me angry that he would talk to me or behave in such a way that it was so disrespectful. But we've ventured off of talking about religious doctrine and into me feeling angry at somebody for behaving in a way that I don't approve of and saying things that were unacceptable to say. And, my own personal feelings. But the main topic was, what are your thoughts on, and like I said, even if you don't believe in God, even if you're atheist, one, your general thoughts on just the rambling I've been doing, and two, just what are your, have you seen stuff of people speaking in tongues? What are your experiences seeing televangelists? Heck, there's been a couple times I've attended mega churches, and it was weird. It was really weird. But, and obviously, I'll tell you one thing. I remember being back when I was in high school, actually still middle school, I think it was 8th grade. We did a week-long trip to Washington, D.C. So I spent a week in Washington, D.C. And it was awesome. I saw a lot of museums. I like museums. I like zoos. I like aquariums. There are no zoos or aquariums in D.C., but I'm just saying, I don't know, maybe it's a nerd thing. I don't know. I like zoos. I like aquariums. But I like museums. They had a lot of history museums, a lot of art museums, a lot of science museums. But one thing, there were a lot of cathedrals, the big Catholic cathedrals. And even though I'm not Catholic, I still considered those places to be sacred. I still considered those things, most of all, beautiful. The architecture and what it went into building that building. I'm impressed by the human ingenuity that it took to build such a thing. And two, I'm just looking at the architecture and I'm like, this building is beautiful. It's aesthetically pleasing. Looking at things like the statues and the stained glass and the archways, and I just feel impressed, and I feel it's very beautiful. I feel it's impressive that a human could build such a thing, and I just think it looks pretty. Heck, you guys ever see the Cathedral and Dot Hack sign? Heck, it's even featured as a level in Dot Hack Infection. It's a PS2 video game, but I recommend the anime Dot Hack sign. Heck, I also enjoyed Ghost in the Shell and things like that, but that's another thing when it comes to video games. I like a lot of video game backgrounds. The level designs in Spyro the Dragon, especially the original one before the remaster, that it's just, the worlds look beautiful. Or heck, you ever just want to wander around the world of Silent Hill? Yeah, there's a bit of fog, but again, granted, a very different aesthetic than Spyro the Dragon, but I like it too. I like the different aesthetics. I like how you can see all these amazing different environments in video games. So, I don't know. This is a very disorganized discussion. The main point being is this. Even if you don't believe in God, I think it'd be good to read the Bible. But I think when it comes right down to it, the most important thing is, say if you're a Christian or a Jew and you're trying to understand God more, I would say just try to read the Bible and just think on it. Ask questions. Try to understand the time periods. And I would also say don't limit yourself to just the Bible. I would say read everything. Read history of every kind. Heck, I would say, like I said, read Warhammer books. Maybe you should read Warhammer books. Maybe watch Evangelion or something. But I'm just saying, what are your thoughts on speaking in tongues? And what are your thoughts on televangelists? Like, I especially feel like there's most televangelists, like the Kenneth Copeland dude is just, he's psychotic. And he's not a good person. And he's just some guy ripping people off for money. I mean, and especially the idea of people's like you have a person yelling at a group of people saying you need to give money or else you're going to. I think there's a one of the video. I'll put a video in the description to like some guy talking about the Kenneth Copeland guy. Granted, he does a little bit of editing into the video, but I think it's fitting given what it is. But it's just, I just feel like Kenneth Copeland is a very bad person, and he's definitely not Christian. But I would also say that man probably has read the Bible quite a bit. After all, if you're going to be a con man, well, you're going to have to be well versed in your con, right? So, if you're going to lie about Scripture and misuse it, you still need to study it. So I guess the main point I'm saying is that there's a lot of people that do attend church every Sunday, and they are very bad people. They are people that read the Bible all the time and are very hateful, horrible people. So just because they attend church every Sunday, just because they read the Bible every day and pray all the time and give a large amount of money to the church all the time, doesn't mean that they have any sort of connection to Jesus. It doesn't mean they're a good person. But I don't know, though I would say this. If I would suggest anyone just to read the Bible, I would say just Psalms and Proverbs. I think that's a good place to go. You know, you don't really get too much into any sort of, my back. I'm tired. Probably eat some food, watch some Let's Plays, and get some sleep, and then go back to work. I work third shift in a factory. But it's just, I don't know, in general I think it's good to read things and to try to learn everything you can. But it's just, heck, I feel like there's a lot of people that just care what people think about themselves. Like, they'll go out there and they just care what people think about them. And they'll go to church every Sunday. And these people they'll act a certain way in front of people. And like they're all clean. But they're just really awful people. And either they're doing horrible shit and they're just trying to have some sort of air of goodness, or they literally are obsessed with self-righteousness, where they're obsessed with looking righteous in front of other people, and two, they might even just be like, I don't know, very stubbornly in the belief that they're, like a holier than thou type person. I mean, there's different people with different motivations for why they are certain ways, but it's just, heck, everyone's got their own unique personality. But it's just, I don't know. I think you guys get the idea of whatever this conversation was. I don't know. What do you guys think about the whole speaking in tongues and televangelists thing? And like I said, I do feel like a lot of preachers, even the ones who aren't televangelists, I feel like they have a lot of the same failings as televangelists. They're just not as successful. Like, they're still bad people that are just trying to get money out of people, but they're just not getting as much money. I feel like many of the preachers out there, if they could be a televangelist and have a lot of success with it, I think they'd want to do it, and I think they'd have it for less than wholesome reasons. I'm sorry if I didn't make any sense, and my rambling. I'm gonna end the video. Bye.